U.S. elections are some of the most expensive in the world. In 2020, more than $16 billion were spent on U.S. presidential and congressional races. That includes all money spent by presidential candidates, Senate and House candidates, political parties, and independent interest groups trying to influence the election. The amount does not include the cost of organizing and running elections, which in the United States are administered at the state and local levels. Those costs are harder to quantify, as they include government systems that make a democracy possible, including voter education, civil servants to carry out election laws, and a system to officially decide disputes. In 2018, U.S. researchers from the University of North Carolina estimated the cost of election administration in the United States to be at least $2 billion per year. In terms of campaign spending, the U.S. far outpaces most countries. In Britain's 2019 general election, political spending was 24 times less than in the 2020 U.S. election. During Australia's 2019 election, political parties spent less than half of what U.S. political parties spent per person the following year. India had a historically expensive election in 2019 when Prime Minister Narendra Modi won a second term in office. That figure topped spending during the U.S. elections in 2016 when Donald Trump won the White House, but fell short of the U.S. election cost in 2020 when Joe Biden took the presidency. Brazil also spends large amounts of money on elections. In the run-up to that vote, President Jair Bolsonaro's administration also spent tens of billions on government programs to woo poor voters. The president narrowly lost to Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Campaign finance laws are designed to keep election costs down and limit money's influence on the outcome. In the United States, Congress passed a campaign finance law in 1974, setting contribution and spending limits for federal campaigns. But the next year, the Supreme Court struck parts of it down, ruling that while contributions to candidates could be limited, spending by candidates constituted a form of protected speech. A 2010 Supreme Court ruling further shook up U.S. campaign finance law. It said corporations and other outside groups have the right to spend unlimited money on elections. The rulings have contributed to an increase in U.S. election spending over time, rising in almost every presidential election since 2000. What do candidates spend the money on? The largest share goes to advertising. Other categories of spending include operational costs, campaign workers' salaries, and fundraising efforts to bring in even more money. Does the richest candidate win? Not always, but often. During the 2022 U.S. midterm elections, 93% of the top spending House candidates and 82% of the top spending Senate candidates won their races. Once a candidate wins office, the reliance on money doesn't stop. Elected officials regularly spend part of their days fundraising for their next campaign.